Hey guys, how you doing? This is Mike McCormick. It's February 9th, 2019. Tonight's discussion, I want to talk about the recent decision by Marilyn Mosby of the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. And I entitled this video, City Prosecutor Says No More Possession Cases. That's what Ms. Mosby said last week. She says that she doesn't feel that the resources are being used the way they should be by going after these low-level possession cases, which are thousands of them in the city. And it's also creating what they call collateral damage. Collateral damage, I did a video on collateral damage. If you want to go back and look into these videos I've done, you'll see on the catalog there, we talk about, well, without going into great detail on what collateral damage is. And collateral damage means this, that if a person gets arrested, there are a whole slew of things that can happen to them. Even if they're found not guilty, they still suffer along the way because the charge is still there until it's expunged. Meaning that as long as it shows up in your record that there was a charge there, you can be denied employment, you can be denied housing. There's a lot of things, and that's the collateral damage. Is what she's talking about. And so she's saying these low-level possession cases, which there are thousands of them, are a waste of the taxpayers' money in terms of the money that it takes to prosecute cases all the time, the manpower that the police department has to use, along with some other agencies that are involved in these types of cases that get prosecuted. So just imagine, here you go, case comes in, the officer has to submit what they call, to the crime lab. The crime lab has it's time to do an analysis of a joint, and then it goes to trial. So, in her mind, and I agree with her, that, let's spend our taxpayer dollars and create more arrest in terms of the volume of serious offenses and violent offenses that occur on a daily basis in this city. And so I have no beef with that. I think that she's making a good statement here. Now, what has gotten confused with those who want to confuse the issue is that they're basically saying that Marilyn Mosby is saying it's okay for people just to go out here and do whatever they want to do in terms with marijuana. That's not what she's saying. What she's saying is that if the police department can bring good cases that have probable cause behind them before they're prosecuted, that she will prosecute all possession with intent charges. And that falls under Article 27-286. Article 27-287 has to deal with simple possession. So she's going after the 286 charges. But there's also the stipulation that you have to have probable cause. No longer does her office want to take these cases where they have to bolster an officer's probable cause, his testimony, and things of that nature. Because, quite frankly, she feels as though that, if you're a trained observer, which you should be as a police officer, then quite naturally you should be able to articulate facts and circumstances that led up to an arrest so that we don't have any problems when the case gets to the prosecutorial stage. So it makes sense. And actually, she also further indicated that she would be more than happy to send some of her staff members over to the police department, I guess when they have these annual in-service trainings or specialized trainings, and go over what probable cause is in cases so that, we don't have to throw out a lot of cases, which even when you throw out a lot of cases ties up public defender's office time as well as the prosecutorial office time as well. So, it makes sense. I often think about particularly marijuana cases, simply because marijuana has been legalized in a few states now across the nation, and so a lot of people are just wondering, when will it take effect here in Maryland? Oh, it will, I'm sure, in the next 10 years. We'll be probably looking like some of these other states from the Midwest that have decided to legalize marijuana. But don't get it wrong. If you went to Colorado tomorrow and you decided to distribute marijuana without a license, you could be incarcerated, okay? Because that's what the law reads out there, is that you have to have a license to open up a shop to sell weed. It's just that simple. So yeah, that's against the law to sell it if you don't have a license. Just like it's against the law for a plumber probably to do plumbing in somebody's house if they don't have a license. I'm just going with that for a minute. Right. So I mean, it is what it is on that end. We know that 10 grams in the state of Maryland is the limit that you can have, the maximum you can have for it to be, not a serious infraction of the law. What else is there? And also on the law enforcement side, officers for years have been using probable cause in terms of low-level offenses that lead to other things, such as loitering. Remember the Eric Garner case where it was loose cigarettes he was selling. See, so those things are designed, those small crimes, those local ordinance crimes are designed, number one, they're public concerned problems, public nuisance, if you will. But those things often are used as precursors for officers to make arrests where they can find other things, such as a person who's wanted on a warrant. Maybe there's drugs in the car on that person, a gun on him or whatever. And so lots of times you'll see cases where something small leads to something big, and generally that's considered to be what they call search incident to an arrest. So you might have been arrested for something small such as marijuana, but when we checked your car, checked your trunk, checked your body or whatever, we were able to find much, much more of whatever it was that's illegal in terms of contraband. Now, Baltimore City, you know, because I can remember this, and I've talked to officers since then, hasn't changed yet. One of the problems with the checks and balances system in terms of the prosecutor's office and police department is that, like, what's slipping through the lines here, between the lines, is that you have officers who are making bad arrests. The state's attorney's office know they're making bad arrests. The individual who got locked up knows it's a bad arrest, and nobody's really being held accountable for it. And so she's at the point now where she says, you know, enough is enough. We're just not going to prosecute these cases. Since nobody wants to rein in some of these officers who think they can manufacture, and when I say manufacture, I mean make up probable cause to keep the stats up and to you know, make them look good at the end of the day, that they're really pushing these numbers up every month in their units or in the individual station housing. So she's saying we're not going to support that anymore. And I got it. It makes sense to me. The other thing is that you have a lot of officers out here making these illegal arrests, and they're being paid for it. Meaning that an officer, if his day falls on a day he's off, well, he or she has to come to court for that marijuana case, which they know that marijuana case was a bad arrest. They're actually being paid for court time for showing up on their day off. So literally, you have officers who are lying on statement of charges, filing these statement of charges with the state's attorney's office, getting a subpoena to come to court, a summons to come to court, and literally the case is getting thrown out as soon as they get there. And if they're there for 10 or 15 minutes, they still get paid for being there for 2 hours. Taxpayers are footing that bill. So enough is enough, and I got it, and it makes a lot of sense. The other thing is, let me see here. The DOJ, Department of Justice, who's here to you know, to examine the police department under the consent decree. I mean, this is nothing that's, I'm not sitting here making this stuff up. The consent decree clearly spells out that there were thousands of unconstitutional arrests for low-level offenses made in this city. And at the end of the day, these offenses are made, arrests are made by the officers and the statement of charges and go legally to the prosecutor's office for further prosecution. So just imagine if thousands of cases are being turned away, and some of them being turned away right at central booking. Cases are getting bounced out the door because it's just, you know, it becomes a mill, so to speak, where people are coming in and going out, you know, because these cases are not meeting constitutionality as spelled out in the Constitution. But when you stop people with probable cause, they have 4th, 6th, 5th Amendment rights that are being violated. And so, you know, kind of that gets overlooked. You know, when we talk about the police department, why are we so hard on the police department? Why are we this? Why are we that? The bottom line is this. The law is the law. And you got to learn the law. And if you have a problem with it, then you need to sit down with your shift commander, sit down with somebody from the state attorney's office and learn what probable cause is and how to effect an arrest. What are your facts and circumstances surrounding the arrest? Quite simple. The officers make it harder themselves when they lie on reports, submit the report to the state attorney's office, who's basically, or have been, probably not now, been really pushing these cases through, knowing that at the end of the day, the case will probably be pled out, a person will be given a stat, the case will be dismissed, and all this was known prior to the case even going to trial. And so this is why you have, you know, so many plea bargains, and lots of times you have people pleading to cases that they're not even guilty of, but they're pleading just to get out of court because they don't want to be there no more. They might even, suppose this person couldn't make bail, you know, on simple possession charge, and he's set, you know, central booking for two or 3 months, waiting to go to trial on a case like that. Come to find out there was no probable cause. Come to find out that everything was a lie, and this person is set for 2 or 3 months. So you know what can happen to the average person that sits 2 or 3 months, particularly if they're working and maybe the breadwinner of the family. They lose their job. Okay, that's a collateral damage, something that she was talking about. And it's prominent in the black community. It doesn't matter whether it's in Baltimore City or another major city. These are the things that go on. If you can recall, back in the 80s, you had a difference in crack cocaine, which was predominantly sold in black neighborhoods, and then you had powder cocaine, which is, you know, typically was sold in white neighborhoods in the counties and stuff. And so the penalties for the crack cocaine was severe, and the penalties for the powder cocaine was not so severe. So you had a lot of folks in the urban communities serving a lot of time back in the 80s, you know, who were getting 10 and 15 years for this kind of stuff. You know, and finally somebody decided to sit down and look at the research, you know, finally, and say, look, we got to let a lot of people out of jail because this doesn't even make sense, these low-level offenses. And so, you know, that was, you know, kind of the turning point, you know, as a result of the war on drugs in the 80s. I was part of that. You know, I come on the police department in 1980, and crack hit the streets like 82, 83. So, you know, I was in a specialized drug unit, and, you know, we were making tons of arrests, you know, because that was the law back then. You know, I was a young guy. I wasn't really as savvy as I am today with social issues as well as criminal justice issues, you know. And, you know, looking back on some of that stuff, you know, I can see some of the collateral damage that happened to some of the folks, you know, that I incarcerated and things like that, or had, you know, locked up, you know. However, you know, I didn't have the time to sit down and manufacture a bad probable cause, make up stuff on taking the charges, lie on people. I had time to do that kind of crap. There was enough good arrests out there to be made that were being made. It's just that simple. So when I see today some of the things that are happening in the criminal justice system, they make me sick, because people are being abused in the system, and the system is basically, you know, it goes around and around and around, and you know, nobody's being held accountable. So that was the reason, one of the reasons why she decided to take the side of good and say, look, enough is enough. These things are not going to be prosecuted. The other thing, let me see. I think, yeah, there was an issue. The acting commissioner, Gary Tuggle, he came on TV and said that his officers are going to continue to make arrests. They should. That's what they're getting paid to do. It's not going to affect them one way or the other. She's saying that if they come to my office with these cases, and these cases don't meet the muster of good cases, they're going to get kicked out. So, you know, they're going to have to work together to resolve some of these issues when it comes to the officers making these arrests and not being held accountable for bad arrests. And this is nothing new. Bad arrests have been made all the time. This is why you have people sitting in prison for years and years and years. Finally, they file post-conviction work and are able to, you know, be freed, because people are taking the time to investigate these cases now and see that there were no witnesses, witnesses lied, weren't sure, officers wrote the reports anyway, didn't do thorough investigations, you know, and as a result, you know, years later, people are now returning home because somebody took the time and effort, you know. But look at the time lost from being home with the family, you know, productivity, you know, what could they have been doing with their lives, you know. So there's, you know, it's double-edged sword and everything. I'm going to leave it where it is. I want to thank you guys for once, you know, always supporting this channel. I need to pick up subscriptions, so if it's your first time viewing this, you know, there's a button on the right-hand side of the screen, I believe, or left-hand side, I'm not sure. You just click that button and you'll subscribe automatically to the channel. And I look forward to you guys reviewing all the videos. If you're new to the channel, go back and follow me, because lots of times I'm getting new viewers on who are just looking at the video I just put on today, and they're judging the whole channel based on these videos. You can't do that. You got to kind of look at the catalog of videos and start from the beginning, if you have the opportunity to, and work your way towards the end. My name is Mike. I want to thank you for your time and attention this evening.